All right, Fresh, let's move on to our number 14 team in our top 25, and that is the Texas Longhorns. Woo, boy, howdy. This is
All I got to say, no more excuses. This is it.
right.
No more excuses for Texas. I don't care what stats were. I'm not going to even waste my time, sharing out that information because last year doesn't matter. It's no more excuses. You have your quarterback and you have a backup quarterback. Pick one, whoever plays good. Got it. You have Xavier Worthy at wide receiver. You bring in Georgia transfer A.D. Mitchell, who has a touchdown catch in all four Georgia playoff games. And I think he's the only player ever to have four touchdowns in one catch in every playoff game he's played in. You got two elite receivers there. Yes, you lose Bijan Robinson, but you have depth. It's Texas. You'll be fine. You have tons of recruits. You've been bringing guys in. No more excuses. It's time to win, or just Steve Sarkisian get fired, buy him out, and send somebody into Austin because it's an epic failure. There's too much talent on this football team and this program for them not to win the Big 12 and not to go to at least the New Year's Six Bowl. If they don't, it's terrible. It's over. Texas will be in some serious situations, and I think there'll be a bunch of players who will then transfer out if this thing blows up and they're not successful this year. This is the last year of the Big 12. I don't care what everyone says. The competition will get better once they go to the SEC. If you don't, and your odds of winning a conference championship are going to diminish significantly once you arrive in the SEC starting next year. So if you want to put any kind of hardware in that facade, that football facility, you've got to do it this year and build something going forward because it's only going to get tougher. Um, you got your trip to Alabama. You almost beat them at home last year. You had injuries at quarterback you couldn't get done. Can you go to Tuscaloosa and win? Steve Sarkisian, another one of the Saban assistants. Can you finally get it done? They have a manageable schedule, which says that this team should be successful. You shouldn't be scared to travel to Waco, Houston, Fort Worth, or Ames. You should not be scared to go there if you're Texas. Those should be 4-0 on the road right then off the bat. You can't overlook them though because they are locations that you should win at, and they somewhat obscure. And most likely in Waco, you're gonna have a lot of Texas fans there. It's in state, obviously. Um, the final four games are the true stretch of this program that you're going to be really to test them. Kansas State, at TCU, at Iowa State, that sneaky little trip to Ames we mentioned, and then you host Texas Tech. If this team is not focused and not healthy coming down the stretch, you're going to have to find ways to dig deep and find ways to get victories. There's too much talent, too much expectations. Enough is enough. No more excuses in Austin. The floor is 8-4, and if this team finishes 8-4 or has four losses, Steve Sarkisian's already been fired at three.
Yep. Yep. Okay. I'm
Um,
with you on that.
and the ceiling is 11-1.
Wow. Okay. Well, I agree with you on that. Like, I'm shaking my head not because of the 8-4 prediction there, Fresh as the four. I'm shaking my head. If Texas wins only 8 games this season, there's a lot bigger problems in Austin than people really need to know. Guys, they say everything's bigger in Texas, and the stakes are bigger in Texas right now. Fresh, we've been out of college. We're college roommates. We graduated college together in 2008. Since then, 15 years ago, we celebrated our 15-year college graduation. Over the last 15 years, how many double-digit win seasons do the Texas Longhorns have? You got any idea?
I'm going to go with three.
It is 3. '08,
Wow.
'09, and they have not since 2010. They have had one, and that's 2018, one 10-win season. Do you really want to tell us that this is acceptable for Texas football? It's not. Listen, there's a lot of things you're going to say about Texas, but one of my favorite things about people from the state of Texas is no matter who you run into, that you're going to be able to talk football with them. You know that they're going to know their stuff. They're going to be very well educated with their team, whether it is Texas, whether it's Texas Tech, Baylor, TCU, what have you. Those people are going to really know their team. And this is an interesting year for Sarkisian. You look 2 years ago, 5-7. Okay, it's his first year taking over for Tom Herman, but okay, whatever. We're seeing progress. He had a better year last year, but still, it's crazy because the Texas standard at 8-5 is an underachieving year. None of those big Texas is one of the most lucrative athletic programs in the entire country. They're in the top 3 or 5, depending on what metric you want to look at. You want to tell me that some of those big time donors and alumni are going to be happy at 8-5? No, you're a considered an upper echelon program in the college football world. You haven't performed that way over the last 15 years, but you are considered that for just your fan base, for the money that comes into that program. They have the higher level of expectation. There's so many schools. Again, we just got done talking about Oregon State. You want to tell me Oregon State, they're going to be ecstatic at 8-5. Texas is not. Quinn Ewers needs to stay healthy all year long this year. The Arch Manning stuff, it's interesting. I'll be intrigued to see if he stays on the bench this year, if Ewers goes down. But 15 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, over 2,000 yards in an injury plagued season. I love this wide receiver room for Texas, man. I think it's the second best wide receiver room outside of the two studs over at Ohio State. But Xavier Worthy and AD Mitchell are absolute beasts. And I still, that was kind of the biggest head scratcher to me, is like, how did AD, I mean, maybe that Texas money came a calling with an NIL deal,
Well,
but
he's from
I don't,
Texas. He got to go
yeah,
home.
goes home. But for me, they got to improve on this pass defense. Like, everyone wants to talk about offense, replacing Bijan Robinson, the wide receivers, the quarterbacks, blah, 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 blah. What you must do is you have to improve on that pass defense. You were ranked 90th in the country in pass defense. And truly, are you ready for the SEC? Are you ready to take that next step? Texas is an amazing program when they're good. When they're good, that fan base is so into that program. And when they're bad, the entire rest of the country roots against you. Because it's easy. It's easy to do the horns down thing because it's fun to make fun of another program that's not yours. It's the same thing with Notre Dame, same thing with Ohio State, same thing with Alabama, same thing with Georgia. When you become the villain to everyone else, that's when it's fun. No one really wants to beat up on Texas right now. It's better to beat up on Texas when you're winning all the time. This is a huge year for Sarkisian. If he doesn't, I'm looking at this schedule here fresh. I'm with you. He'll get a pass if he loses to Alabama. Going
Yeah,
into
we'll give him the pass.
yeah, going into Tuscaloosa, as long as Texas doesn't get like destroyed like 70-0, he gets a pass there. Wyoming, Baylor, Kansas, you're 4-1 going into to Red River rivalry there. The back half of the schedule, if they get through Red River 5-1, the back half of the schedule is really, K-State worries me, but that game's in Austin, and the Texas Tech game worries me, but that game also is in Austin. I got this team. I gotta say, like, I'm with you. Their floor is 8 wins. Their expectation is 10. Their expectation should be 10. So Sark, you're in the unemployment line at 8 or 9 wins or less. You're out. If you're 9-3, even though that's an improvement, you're out. You're not ready for the SEC, and SEC is going to eat you alive at this point. 10 wins, Sark saves his job and he goes on to the next one, because you can then say, okay, he's making double-digit game improvements year after year here. I can say, that Alabama game was close. I am still going to favor Alabama in that game, but okay, if Texas pulls it off, you should run the rest of your schedule, be 12-0, and got a really good shot for the college football playoff.
Yeah, I mean, if they even play Alabama tough and maybe lose by a
Right,
touchdown, that team will get momentum because it's a road game.
right,
If they get blown out, that actually might kill the souls of the football team because they're going to hear it from everybody that they got embarrassed on the road.
right. Man, Texas is fun to talk about. I'm glad I'm not a Texas fan because it would be so. Again, it's tough for a fan base like that. It's not saying I don't like the state of Texas or I don't like the Texas Longhorns. I just think that'd be so tough to go through.
I mean, how great though is it that if you're a Longhorn fan, you're probably a Cowboys fan, and you haven't seen a postseason win and a true postseason game of any significance in how long? That's fantastic.
Yikes. I'm glad my teams are in the AFC and up north.